Someone with a serious mental illness would be, just kind of mental picture, would be someone who can't function on their own and definitely needs a lot of support and a lot of help to kind of get by through life.
Slower learning than others.
First thing that comes is, very timid, very antisocial, very scared of their surroundings.
My sister.
Even if we don't mean to, the general population sees people with mental health issues in that movie kind of way. The wild hair and the eyes and, and they're scary.
Usually that's somebody who's dangerous or somebody who's not making sense and somebody who is to be avoided socially because they're unpredictable.
Some people with mental illness certainly are violent. Some people without mental illness are violent as well. The data shows that people with mental illness are less likely to commit a violent crime than those who are just average, what we would think average citizens.
People see those of us with mental illnesses sometimes as these large monsters, horrific killers, people that walk around drooling and shaking and doing the shuffle and, just these horrid pictures. And the reality is that if we walked down the same street, you wouldn't know that I had a mental illness any more than maybe the person standing next to me.
And the truth of the matter is people with mental health issues are 1 in 4 people in the U.S. population on any given year.
People with mental illness face challenges that are related to their illness. They face challenges, more importantly, from stigma. People believing that they can't do things in the community.
People with mental illness, I believe, do not fully recover. They have good days and bad days and stuff.
Well, in my sister's case, she's been medicated since she was 15 years old, mental illness, and now she's almost 60, and I don't see her getting any better at all.
Yes, I do feel that people with mental illness do get better because they learn more and they're eager to learn.
People can absolutely recover from mental illness, and that's one of the most exciting things I think about my work today is that people do recover at a much greater rate than they used to 25, 30 years ago.
I've seen it. I've seen that there is a tremendous hope for recovery. And it really depends on the person that has mental illness and the people around them that support them or work with them.
I think one of the most important parts of a recovery attitude is that you don't wait until somebody is all better to declare that they are recovered. And you don't wait until all their symptoms are gone to begin to expect that they can participate in all the things that all of us want to participate in.
I need to hear numbers. 7! 8. All right, I heard A. Number 8.
And I think it's important to note that recovery is going to look different for each person. But absolutely, recovery not only can happen, but it happens every day. It happens every moment that someone gets up and makes that choice. Today, I'm going to move forward with some part of my life. And that's recovery. And for that, you thank God and you know that miracles can happen.
I was 29 years old and I had a complete mental breakdown, including a psychotic episode. And at that point, I got into a little bit of trouble, but it turns out later I had subsequent breakdowns, and so the diagnosis was later changed to paranoid schizophrenia. I just had isolated incidences where I was doing things that were odd. I used to surf at the time. I heard this voice say, "Get out of the water." Just out of the blue, this loud voice saying, "Get out of the water." I didn't know if they're talking to me or somebody else, and so I ended up getting out of the water and going home, and these voices were influencing me. And it's disturbing. I was afraid for my life. I thought my neighbor was trying to kill me. And so the only way to save myself was to assault him. And I had another breakdown, and they put me under the Department of Mental Health wing of the prison.
I started really having trouble with mental health issues in high school, near the second half of high school. And I had always been a great student, involved in everything, and really started struggling near the end. Instead of going off to college like all of my friends were and I had planned to do, I ended up spending the next several years going to therapy, in the hospital, in the hospital a lot. Well, just day to day, I mean, emotions were torturous. Nothing made me feel better. I just felt horrible all the time, and I couldn't make that stop. Nothing sounded fun, nothing was what I wanted to do, nothing would make things feel any better, and it was a really helpless time. You know, I didn't feel like I could do anything to change how I felt. Just getting up every day and making it through the day was so hard. I really wanted to be a part of things and be a part of my family and still be a part of my circle of friends, but at the same time I always felt awkward around everybody because I wasn't who I used to be.
You know, I've been through a lot with my family, having drug addiction and stuff like that. And when I got to school, I was also had to deal with a lot of racism. So, you know, my early days in school, I was being called all kinds of names by parents, the kids. It didn't make school interesting. It was actually something that I had to just get through, you know. And I think, you know, people called it back then was ADHD. And for me, like, I kind of used like my family being a part, you know, my issues with focusing in school. I used that as leverage to mess up and get involved in the wrong things, get involved with gangs, selling drugs, all kinds of stuff. I always thought because of what I've been through that I wasn't worth it. To be selling drugs in Seattle and to be serving people that pretty much that would have been like my family, you know, doing something that tore my family apart was starting to tear me apart on the inside. It's kind of like survival of the fittest, and I was scared that, you know, I'd end up in jail and then lose everything.
I felt at times that I didn't want to get out of bed. I just wanted nothing more than to pull the covers over my head. I didn't want to face the world at all. I didn't want to leave my apartment. I didn't want to get out of my bed. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to see my friends. I didn't want to answer the phone. Something that really struck a chord with me is a quote from Abraham Lincoln. I must get better or I will die. I cannot remain here. Because he suffered from depression too. And that really, I remember that. I can't stay here. Things are going to have to get better or I'm going to have to die. Things were horrible, and having a diagnosis was a little bit of a relief to where I could understand why I was having so much trouble.
These are my twin daughters at age 4, and this was before we knew that bipolar disorder would be coming down the line. That's extremely difficult. You become very isolated. You don't talk to neighbors about your child when they're in a psychiatric hospital because you don't want your child to be isolated or stigmatized or made fun of when they come out of the hospital. So as a family, you start to go into these very dysfunctional, covert ways of being out of love for your child and trying to protect them from something that most people in the world don't understand and is highly stigmatized.